Donald Trump has gone missing all day. No one knows where he is. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent held a press conference at the White House. He was asked about his conversations with Donald Trump today because Bessent was at the White House for most of the morning, and Bessent said, "I haven't seen Donald Trump today." Marco Rubio celebrated his birthday in the White House. Everybody in the White House was there except for Donald Trump, singing happy birthday to him. Where has Donald Trump gone? This comes at the same time that Donald Trump took a very suspicious visit to Walter Reed that we've been reporting about. Donald Trump said his health is perfect, which of course we don't believe because we see him each and every day. This also comes at the same time that we learned moments ago that Israel is now demanding that the Trump regime kill Iran's lead negotiator, MB Ghalibaf. We know that, at least as of the past 48 hours, 72 hours, we were being told that the United States and Iran were moving closer to a deal. Iran was actually the party that announced a framework was getting closer to become agreed upon. And then we saw Israel escalate its attacks on Lebanon. And now we're learning about this purported kill order of MB Ghalibaf. Here's what's being reported by Capital and Empire on an exclusive basis. Israel has been privately lobbying the U.S. to kill Iran's lead negotiator, MB Ghalibaf, abandon all talks, and restart strikes on Iran's oil infrastructure. And they're trying to work on Hegseth to get that done. Let me show you what's going on in the White House right now. So you had Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Oddly, it was Bessent holding the press conference today, not Trump or not Caroline Leavitt, although I think she's been spending time with her newborn. That's what they're saying. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked, what'd you talk about with Trump today? And he goes, "I haven't seen him." Well, you've been in the White House all morning. Here's what Bessent says. Play this clip.
First, did you speak with the president before this briefing? Did he show any willingness to this 60-day ceasefire extension?
I haven't seen the president today.
And then I just want to follow up. When can Americans, the average American, and can the U.S. economy work for the average American without a deal with Iran?
Again, I believe we've already seen oil prices come down substantially. We are pumping more oil than we've ever seen before. And as I said, these are short-term challenges that we will get over, and I think we'll move forward.
Now, I'll just show you a short clip of this so you can get a sense of it. I don't need to play the whole birthday song, but the entire Trump administration celebrated Marco Rubio's birthday at the White House. And guess who was not there at all? Donald Trump again. And when you look at Trump's schedule, it says executive time. He has nothing planned on his schedule. And by the way, Trump's last post was from 15 hours ago, and it was a photo of the AI image of the reflecting pool. Here's what we saw with Rubio. Here, play this clip.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Yes, sir.
Then Treasury Secretary Bessent continued on with this very odd press conference without Donald Trump. And he said, "We did not have regime change, but we changed the regime." Okay, here, play this clip.
Indian government, we did not have regime change, but we changed the regime. As President Trump said at the cabinet meeting, as we've said other times, the first layer of leadership was eliminated, the second layer, and we're now at the third layer. And the way to think about it is the Iranian government, such as it is three pillars. It is the elected government, it is the IRGC, and it is the clerics, and they are having trouble communicating. So we are being patient. We do not have unlimited patience. President Trump always prefers a peace deal. So everything we have done thus far has been defensive, and at present, that is what we will continue doing. But if President Trump doesn't think he can get a peace deal, then Connecticut.
And then Bessent was asked about Donald Trump threatening to blow up Oman and to destroy Oman. And Bessent basically confirms that he's been coercing Oman this morning. By the way, this is why the Arab nations are all working behind the scenes to come up with the new security architecture in the Middle East with China being kind of the main guarantor. That's what they're working on behind the scenes for now because of all the American military bases that remain in the area, which are a liability. You know, the Middle East nations are kind of just buying their time, but we can see the writing on the wall of what's really happening. Here's what Bessent says, though, about Oman. Let's play this clip.
President Trump said, Oman will behave just like everybody else, or we will have to blow them up. Are you guys back there in the West Wing making plans for a new war with Oman?
I think the president wanted to punctuate freedom of navigation in the strait. I had a call with the Omani ambassador this morning, and he assured me that there were no plans for tolling the strait. As he said, our countries have had 200 years of good relations. He wants to have another 200 more. And I told him that this was a non-starter, and he did not want to risk either the Omani individuals or Omani financial institutions getting sanctioned.
And then Bessent is asked about Donald Trump giving this $1.8 billion from the Treasury, your department, Bessent, to these January 6th insurrectionists, giving this $1.8 billion slush fund. And Bessent's like, well, the IRS leaked more than 4,000 tax returns, and that's weaponization. Okay, that happened during Donald Trump's first term in 2019. Trump, weaponized against himself and had an IRS contractor who worked for Trump leak the 400,000 tax returns. And also, those 400,000 people whose tax returns were leaked, they didn't have causes of action. They weren't able to sue. They couldn't file billion-dollar suits. They didn't get their audits and all tax-related claims against them wiped away and get immunity from them as the Treasury Department negotiated with Trump on a personal basis. Here's what Bessent says. Let's play this clip.
So there's ongoing litigation, so it'd be inappropriate for me to comment. President Trump is a great American who has endured more than 10 years of nonstop harassment and weaponization from the federal and state government actors. A bad actor at the IRS leaked more than 400,000 tax returns, including the Trump family, all the employees, and that's how we got here now. No American should be targeted for political reasons, and every citizen deserves fair treatment and full protection of the law. The Department of Justice represented Treasury and the IRS in this matter, and I'm going to have to refer any questions to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. So.
What about the report this morning that Justice Alito's son works for Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent? That came out this morning. Here, play this clip.
You want to go ask
him? Thank you for taking my question. There was a report this morning that Justice Alito's son is working in your department. Can you confirm that that's the case? And if so, do you believe that that means that he should be, that the justice should recuse himself from cases that involve your department?
I am sure that Mr. Alito follows all legal and ethical guidelines, and I can assure you that at Treasury, we follow all the legal and ethical guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I have two questions for you, but just to follow.
And a reporter then asks Bessent, the data shows that Americans are saving far less money right now and far less of their income is being saved than ever before. Watch what Bessent says in response. He says, that's a good thing. Let's play it.
Yep.
There's new government data that shows that Americans are now saving a smaller share of their incomes than at any time over the past 4 years. Are you seeing signs that American households are dipping into their savings to pay for the higher costs of things like gas and groceries? And does data like that concern you right now?
Well, so a lower academic literature would tell you a lower savings rate can mean one of two things. The doomer view that you took, or that people have more confidence, or it could be something else because, for instance, stock market gains or 401k gains might not show up in savings, so they're looking at that, think that they can draw down their household savings.
What about Donald Trump wanting a $250 bill of himself and trying to push that in the Bureau of Engravings? Here's what Bessent says. Let's play this clip.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I have 2 questions for you, but just to follow what you said about the.
Well, you didn't call me
$250
doctor, so
bill.
I only get one.
Well, I'll shoot for 2. You said that it's up to Congress. The president's face is on a $250 bill, but it is actually the Washington Post that's reporting 2 political appointees from the Treasury Department who have asked agencies to be ready to do that. Do you think politically it's a good idea to put his face on a $250 bill when people are struggling to afford gas and groceries?
I don't really understand this Washington Post article. That who hears from the Post? Yeah, terribly written, terribly edited. Because basically, what it says is that Treasury is following the law, and that we've created the bill, and that it's up to Congress, but that we follow the bill and it's up to. I didn't really understand what the story was.
So,
but anyway.
appointees aren't involved in that, 2 of your political appointees?
Yeah, of course, but we prepare for everything if it gets passed. Just like we were ready 6 months in advance for the one big beautiful bill for tax guidance. So we have to prepare in advance. You can't draw something up the day before.
Politically, do you think it's a good idea though when people are struggling to?
And then Bessent starts talking about how he's a doctor now. It's really weird. Here, play this clip.
I will mention that 3 weeks ago, I got an honorary degree from the University of South Carolina. So if you really want to get a question, you can call me Dr. Bessent.
And more from Bessent right here saying that I'm not going to be taking any other questions when he's asked another question about the $1.8 billion slush fund for insurrectionists. Here's what he says. Let's play this clip.
Secretary, about the $1.8 billion fund. Is it accurate that the general counsel of the Treasury Department resigned over that?
I will not be taking any other questions. I will not be taking any other questions. So
I want to bring in Democratic Congressmember from New Jersey, Rob Menendez. Congressman Menendez, it's good to see you. I want to just start off just by framing this because this is every morning, right? Like you and I, we do this interview, whether it's in the morning or whenever. They throw all this chaos at us, and then people want to tune it out. Like I think the reaction by a lot of people is like, I don't want any of this. Politics is horrible. Let's not care about any of this. This shouldn't be the way it is. But we have to focus on this and we have to make the connections that, to me, all of this is related right now. And we have to understand where it's coming from. Talk to us about it, Congressman.
Yes, listen, remember from day one, they've had a flood the zone strategy, right? Where, to your point, they want to overwhelm the American people who are struggling with the affordability crisis. They're just trying to keep their heads above water. They're trying to take care of their kids, make ends meet, pay their credit card bills, and fill their car up with gas, which has been increasingly expensive the last several months with Trump's illegal war with Iran. So, this administration wants to push the limits of what people will find acceptable. You see that on every front from federal spending for an East Wing, a slush fund for the president, this war that's raged on without any end in sight, what you see on the immigration front. They want to stretch all the norms that have existed in this country for so long to see what people will tolerate. And my point always is each one of us needs to have a red line that this president, when they cross it, and they will, we are ready to speak out against this administration. We are ready to raise our voices. You're seeing so many Americans who are already there. When you look at our No Kings rally and other efforts, when you see people running for Congress across the country, even in the reddest districts, people are fed up and they're ready to fight back. We need them to stay engaged throughout the remainder of this presidency.
I think about an individual in your congressional district, Adriana Zapata. And you think about a headline like this. Judge orders the United States to return a Colombia woman who was deported to Congo. Took her, sent her to Congo. Congo's like, why are you sending her here? And just lost in Congo. By the way, also where we know in some areas there's an Ebola, all this is connected to, there's an Ebola outbreak as well as a result of the Trump regime shutting down a lot of critical, anti-Ebola measures and destroying the CDC. And now they're asking for volunteers at the airport. But that's a whole other story. But hearing about a story like Adriana, on a day-to-day, you've been fighting for this every day to get her back and to have due process. But just the sheer idea of taking people and sending them to random countries that they're not from and separate and removing them from their families. It's so inhumane.
100%. And it's all happening on the taxpayer dime, right? So when the government says we have to cut $1 trillion from healthcare, they also, in the same breath, say that they need $70 billion to send people who have protected status here under the Convention Against Torture because of what happened in Colombia to Adriana. They're saying that they have and need billions of dollars to do things like mass detention and flights to places like the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Like, that is where there's such a misalignment between what people are experiencing every day and what this administration is doing. And, it's Stephen Miller, it's the cruelty that sits at the heart of this administration, where they really don't care about the well-being of Americans. They don't care about the well-being of our community members. And Adriana's case is one that I think it really captures this, because she could be back home in New Jersey with her family going through her immigration proceedings, but instead they have kept her in Texas. They removed her from Texas to Louisiana to the Congo. There's no reason for that. We can still enforce our immigration laws without this level of cruelty. But this seems to be the administration's point. They just want to break people. They want to break our spirit. And that's why we have to fight back. And that's why we have to stay in this and convince people that caring about your neighbor enables us to care about each other, which enables us to be stronger as a country. Because it's not about what's best for us as individuals. It's what's best for all of us. And if we can get back to there, we can push back against this administration, get the country back on track.
We've been focused on what's happening at Delaney Hall, and it's one of these detention center camps. It's run by that private security geo that makes all of this money from taxpayers. I mean, this company's making billions and billions of dollars. The conditions there are absolutely horrific. There are like diseases spreading. People aren't being fed. And then there's a hunger strike that's now been led based on these conditions. Talk to us, for those that don't know what's going on in Delaney right now. They may have been, I remember Delaney early on, and then it's still happening. Talk to us about what's going on there. You, other Congress members were there. Senator Andy Kim was pepper sprayed in the face in front of Delaney and then mocked by the new Department of Homeland Security Secretary for being pepper sprayed in the face. What's going on there?
Yeah, so Delaney Hall's been open for just over a year. It's $1 billion contract that our government has given to the GEO Group. There's about 800 people who are being held there. When it opened, it was supposed to be, so we had a place for the administration to get the worst of the worst. That's just not the reality of who's there. I mean, I tell these stories all the time. We had a pastor from the city of Elizabeth who was there for several weeks. We have mothers, fathers. You have pregnant women who are there. You have an 18-year-old who missed her high school graduation here in New Jersey because she was being detained at Delaney Hall, missed her brother's 9th birthday party. That's who's at Delaney Hall. And the hunger strike was a response, yes, to the conditions, which continue to be, inhumane in terms of how they are treating these people, especially people who have serious medical conditions that are not getting the care they need or deserve. But really, the question for the individuals there, and one of the reasons that they are on a hunger strike to raise awareness of who they are, is why are we here? Right? None of us have criminal records. So many of us are married to U.S. citizens. Our children are U.S. citizens. We have small businesses. We've been productive members of our community. We've been going through the immigration process. So many of the people, 70%, 80% are being apprehended at their ICE check-ins, at their court hearings. They are literally trying to go through this broken immigration system, being apprehended and taken to Delaney Hall, and there's no understanding why. They're getting no due process. This past Tuesday, one judge had 74 hearings in a single day. That is not due process. And so they want to raise awareness of what's happening inside, who our government is holding in places like Delaney Hall. And that's why so many of us have been going there. And the administration's response is, let's pause and see what's going on and do better. It's to try to fabricate a situation outside Delaney Hall with Trump's paramilitary and protesters and trying to focus on that because they don't want to have a conversation about what's happening inside Delaney Hall. Because my belief, if Americans understood and saw and knew the stories of the individuals inside Delaney Hall, you would see a further erosion of support for Trump's immigration policies.
What we also see quite frequently is when the individuals who are detained are finally able to get a lawyer, which is difficult given the conditions, file a habeas petition, which is difficult given the conditions. Oftentimes, the Department of Justice doesn't even reply Or if they do, they don't know what the case is even about. They don't have any facts on their side. And so we've literally seen, this isn't being hyperbolic, like tens of thousands of cases where these habeas petitions have been granted, where people have been thrown in these detention centers and camps. And then the Department of Justice doesn't even have an argument, like yet alone a bad argument, no argument. They don't respond. And oftentimes then it's like, well, now we've waited a year and a half until this process can actually get going. And the Department of Justice response is nothing. And I want to talk about this, though, before we go, which is, then you have the latest is Trump apparently using the Department of Justice in Chicago to now investigate E. Jean Carroll. I mean, while you have this massive cover up by these MAGA Republicans in Congress of the Epstein files, while you have Pam Bondi, I guess she's set to testify this, tomorrow. We'll see. We'll see what actually goes on there. Now he's going after the survivor who was found to have won the case, and they're going after her for the victor in the case. I mean, it's hard to fathom.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to see, right? This is not who we should be as a country. This is not how any administration should conduct themselves. But this is where we are with Donald Trump. And my point to the American people is, I don't know how much clearer he can make it for you, right? If someone tells you who they are over and over again, you better start believing them. And in my opinion, this is clearly someone who doesn't give a shit about the American people, right? Like, it's just about either his vanity projects on the ballroom or his personal grievance tour, and going after individuals and using the full weight of the government to go after them. Like, that's who our president is. And people need to understand that. If they still want to support him like Republicans in the House have, this entire Congress, well, that's a failure on their part, and they're going to have to answer to their constituents. But at some point, we're all going to have to answer to our children and our grandchildren where we stood in this moment. And looking at what this president is doing in this second term and how he's targeting Americans, how he's abusing his office, if Republicans can't find the spine to speak out against it, it's going to be staying on their individual legacies and the record of the Republican Party, because they're failing the American people right now.
Yeah, let's leave it at that point right there, and I'll throw this to you, which is, let's remove politics from all of this. Like, Democrat, because to me, this is a very unique moment where it's just like humanity, like it's just behavior. And, do we tolerate the type of behavior that we see, the bullying, the punching down, the hate, the killing, or do we stand for something else? And to me, it's really that question. And sometimes the politics of it all obscures intentionally by making it feel like, these are just Republicans and Democrats. This is a different moment. I'll let you give the final word on that.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate the point, right? Like, because at some point this has to stop, right? This like tit for tat mentality between Republicans and Democrats, grievances and airing of grievances and targeting of individuals back and forth. It just has to stop, because it's not healthy for our country. And, ultimately we're going to realize that this tribalism around our political identity has torn our country apart. It's made us weaker as a country, and it's torn families and communities apart. So how do we correct this? We decide that more important than being a Democrat or Republican is we're Americans, right? And we can have our disagreements, but together we need to go forward, right? We need to take on the challenges that exist right before us, come up with solutions to those challenges, but do it together. Because I don't believe there's anything that we can't do in this country if we do it together, if we come together. And I know that sounds like a far-fetched idea right now, but at every moment in our country's history, when we really need to step up to the moment, we put our differences aside. I was in high school on 9/11, and I remember that moment in the weeks and months after, where we came together as a country. And I know we have it inside of us to do that. And right now, we're not meeting the moment, but we can. And so I want people to understand that these differences do need to be set aside, and Democrats and Republicans have to be responsible in doing so and lead and show what that looks like, because ultimately we have to face the challenges our country is facing. We have to move our country forward. We have to do that as Americans.
Congressman Rob Menendez, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.